During 1987, I spent close to $5,000 of my pocket change, and at least 1,000 hours of my time writing, printing, and mailing to any senator, congressman, governor, or slug that might listen. None did, and they universally treated me as if I was wasting their time. I spent countless hours on the LA freeways driving to meetings, and all of the disorganized professional groups who were attempting to mount a campaign against this atrocity. This only to discover that our efforts were being easily derailed by a few moles from the brokers who were just beginning to enjoy the windfall from the new declaration of their freedom. Oh, and don't forget, for all of the time I was spending on this, I was losing income that I couldn't bill clients. After months of struggling, it had clearly gotten to be a futile exercise. The best we could get for all of our trouble is a pronouncement from an IRS mouthpiece that they weren't going to enforce that provision, read harass engineers and scientists. This immediately proved to be a lie, and the mere existence of the regulation began to have its impact on my bottom line. This, of course, was the intended effect. Again, rewind my retirement plans back to zero, and shift them into idle. If I had any sense, I clearly should have abandoned engineering, and never looked back. Instead, I got busy working 100-hour work weeks. Then came the LA Depression of the early 1990s. Our leaders decided that they didn't need all of those extra Air Force bases they had in Southern California, so they were closed, just like that. The result was economic devastation in the region that rivaled the widely publicized Texas S&L fiasco. However, because the government caused it, no one gave a shit about all of the young families who lost their homes, or street after street of boarded-up houses abandoned to the wealthy loan companies who received government funds to shore up their windfall. Again, I lost my retirement. Years later, after weathering a divorce and the constant struggle trying to build some momentum with my business, I find myself once again beginning to finally pick up some speed. Then came the combust and the 911 nightmare. Our leaders decided that all aircraft were grounded for what seemed like an eternity, and long after that, special facilities like San Francisco were on security alert for months. This made access to my customers prohibitively expensive. Ironically, after what they had done, the government came to the aid of the airlines with billions of our tax dollars. As usual, they left me to rot and die while they bailed out their rich, incompetent cronies with my money. After these events, there went my business, but not quite yet all of my retirement and savings. By this time, I'm thinking that it might be good for a change. Bye to California, I'll try Austin for a while. So I moved, only to find out that this is a place with a highly inflated sense of self-importance, and where damn little real engineering work is done. I've never experienced such a hard time finding work. The rates are 1/3 of what I was earning before the crash, because pay rates here are fixed by the 3 or 4 large companies in the area who are in collusion to drive down prices and wages, and this happens because the Justice Department is all on the take and doesn't give a fuck about serving anyone, or anything but themselves and their rich buddies. To survive, I was forced to cannibalize my savings and retirement, the last of which was a small IRA. This came in a year with mammoth expenses, and not a single dollar of income. I filed no return that year, thinking that because I didn't have any income there was no need. The sleazy government decided that they disagreed. But they didn't notify me in time for me to launch a legal objection, so when I attempted to get a protest filed with the court, I was told I was no longer entitled to due process, because the time to file ran out. Bend over for another $10,000 helping of justice. So now we come to the present. After my experience with the CPA world, following the business crash, I swore that I'd never enter another accountant's office again. But here I am with a new marriage, and a boatload of undocumented income, not to mention an expensive new business asset, a piano, which I had no idea how to handle. After considerable thought, I decided that it would be irresponsible not to get professional help, a very big mistake. When we received the forms back, I was very optimistic that they were in order. I had taken all of the year's information to Bill Ross, and he came back with results very similar to what I was expecting. except that he had neglected to include the contents of Cheryl's unreported income, $12,700 worth of it. To make matters worse, Ross knew all along this was missing, and I didn't have a clue until he pointed it out in the middle of the audit. By that time it had become brutally evident that he was representing himself, and not me. This left me stuck in the middle of this disaster trying to defend transactions that have no relationship to anything tax-related. At least the tax-related transactions were poorly documented, things I never knew anything about and things my wife had no clue would ever matter to anyone. The end result is, well, just look around. I remember reading about the stock market crash before the Great Depression, and how there were wealthy bankers and businessmen jumping out of windows when they realized they screwed up and lost everything. Isn't it ironic how far we've come in 60 years in this country, that they now know how to fix that little economic problem they just steal from the middle class, who doesn't have any say in it? Elections are a joke to cover their asses, and it's business as usual. Now when the wealthy fuck up, the poor get to die for the mistakes. Isn't that a clever, tidy solution? As government agencies go, the FAA is often justifiably referred to as a tombstone agency, though they are hardly alone. The recent presidential puppet G.W. Bush and his cronies in their 8 years certainly reinforced for all of us that this criticism rings equally true for all of the government. Nothing changes unless there is a body count, unless it is in the interest of the wealthy sows that the government draweth. In a government full of hypocrites from top to bottom, life is as cheap as their lies and their self-serving laws. I know I'm hardly the first one to decide I have had all I can stand. It has always been a myth that people have stopped dying for their freedom in this country, and it isn't limited to the blacks and poor immigrants. I know there have been countless before me, and there are sure to be as many after. But I also know that by not adding my body to the count, I ensure nothing will change. I choose to not keep looking over my shoulder at Big Brother while he strips my carcass. I choose not to ignore what is going on all around me. I choose not to pretend that business as usual won't continue. I have just had enough. I can only hope that the numbers quickly get too big to be whitewashed and ignored, that the American zombies wake up and revolt. It will take nothing less. I would only hope that by striking a nerve that stimulates the inevitable double standard, knee-jerk government reaction that results in more stupid draconian restrictions, people wake up and begin to see the pompous political thugs and their mindless minions for what they are. Sadly, though, I spent my entire life trying to believe it wasn't so. But violence not only is the answer, it is the only answer. The cruel joke is that the really big chunks of shit at the top have known this all along and have been laughing at and using this awareness against fools like me all along. I saw it written once that the definition of insanity is repeating the same process over and over and expecting the outcome to suddenly be different. I am finally ready to stop this insanity. Well, Mr. Big Brother IRS man, let's try something different. Take my pound of flesh and sleep well. The communist creed, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. The capitalist creed, from each according to his gullibility, to each according to his greed. Joe Stack, 1956 through 2010, dated February 18, 2010.
The preceding audio duplication of the words of Mr. Joe Stack has been brought to you by Too Sexy For You.